Norman Manley was a man who was of exceptional strength. When he was going to primary school, he wrote in his memoirs that he grew up as a bushman. He would earn his daily pocket money by cleaning pastures and cutting logwood. He would get up in the morning, he said, and walk the entire day looking for stray cattle, returning home after 12 to 14 hours on the constant move. What is significant is that he always found time to read whenever light and opportunity afforded. In 1906, Norman Manley won a partial scholarship to Jamaica College, and he quickly acquired a reputation as a gang leader and somebody who undermined the discipline. In fact, in 1907, he was reported by every master in the school to the headmaster. But the transformation in his life came in 1909 after his mother died. With the realization of the sacrifices that she had made, he decided to turn his life around. In the last 3 years at Jamaica College, his achievements are well known. In 1910, Norman Manley was made captain of the track team. They had lost the cup in 1910 and led them to victory in 2 consecutive years. In 1912, Norman Manley established a record at Sabina Park in 100 yards of 10 seconds, which lasted until 1952. When he became captain of the track team, he undertook the responsibility of coaching the boys himself. So he'd get up in the morning and coach them. In 1912, he was made captain of the Sunlight Cup team. And when he realized that there was no fast bowler on the team, he got up in the morning, made himself into a fast bowler, and took most wickets in Sunlight. The transformation came largely as a result of Norman Manley's own determination and resolve. His iron discipline, his capacity for sustained work, his fixity of purpose, and his sustained pursuit of excellence. After all of those achievements as a schoolboy, in 1914, he won the Rhodes Scholarship. And within 1 month, he was struck down by typhoid fever, and his weight fell from 175 pounds to 94 pounds. He recovered and went to Oxford. And after the first term, he volunteered for the First World War. Norman Manley spent 4 years in the First World War. He was a gunner. He had wanted to become a pilot, but could not afford the fee. It was, I think, 150 pounds. So he became a gunner. And that involved being exposed to the hazards and dangers of trench warfare, because he had to set the guns. When Norman Manley came out of the First World War, he got the military medal, which is a medal for bravery. He re-entered Oxford. He had a nervous breakdown, recovered, went back to Oxford, and he did the BCL, which is the Bachelor of Civil Laws. It is a course that should last for 2 years, and he did it in 6 months and got first-class honors. He also got first-class honors at the bar. And Vivian Blake, one of his proteges and one of Jamaica's finest advocates, in a lecture he gave in 1984, said that in conversation with Norman Manley, Manley told him that he knew the decision in over 1,000 reported cases in various branches of the law that he could recite from memory. Norman Manley was called to the bar in Jamaica in 1922, August. In fact, no lawyer had been enrolled in Jamaica since 1911. He was invited to take silk in 1932, right? 2 months less than the 10 years. Understand? Because what had happened, at first, he found the going difficult. His first case was actually in November of that year in Spanish Town. And he would write, I knew every line and letter of the evidence by heart. I had cross-examined on paper every witness. I filled over 3 volumes of notebooks. Yet when he stood up to ask his first question, he froze. And he was there, his palms got sweaty and his throat dry. And after a minute, the months of autosuggestion came into play. And he asked his first question. And then after that, he said he was on his way. He, of course, won that case. Everybody deferred to Norman Manley. He was so outstanding. All the others were dwarfed by his presence. The verdict given by those judges who witnessed his courtroom style and experienced his advocacy skills is sufficient to validate the claim that for eloquence, style and effectiveness in cross-examination and depth of preparation, it has not been equaled by any member of the Jamaican bar. In 1951, Norman Manley went to England, to the Privy Council, to argue the Vicks trademark case. And the Lord Chancellor said that it was the best argument he had ever heard in a trademark case. Norman Manley, and I must mention this, also represented a man by the name of Donald Beard at XRAF man, a Jamaican man charged with murder in London. And at the conclusion of the case, after a successful representation, Mr. Justice Sellers said, I must tell you the pleasure it has been and the satisfaction the prisoner must feel at having you defend him. But one of the cases I think that demonstrated the extent of Norman Manley's preparation and the commitment and the energy is the case of Mrs. Alexander. She was charged along with her brother since 1931 for the murder of her husband. At the end of the case, Justice Adrian Clark said, if genius is an infinite capacity for taking pains, you have been defended by a genius. In that case, Norman Manley spent so much time and effort because what had happened is that the ballistic expert was a government chemist, had given evidence and said that the bullet that was found in the body of Mr. Alexander, right, had come from the gun, right, of the accused. And he said that the chances of there being being inflicted by another gun was like 100 trillion or something. Norman Manley, along with his brother-in-law, Mr. Ludlow Moody, and his friend, I think Aston Simpson, was not content. And what he did is that he got his wife, she was commissioned to do a bust of Alexander, right, that was brought into court to demonstrate various hypotheses. But in addition to that, Ludlow Moody was a man with a phenomenal knowledge of guns. And what they did is that they fired thousands of rounds of ammunition, thousands of rounds every night in water and in plasticine models. And Douglas and Michael would go and retrieve the bullets, and they would come and subject it to minute testing. And eventually they found a bullet that had the same markings as the markings that was found in the body. When Norman Manley was being interviewed by Philip Sherlock, one of his biographers, and he was asked the reason for his success.
Absolutely egotistic determination to win every case I was engaged in, which I regard as the most important attribute of an advocate.
Maximum concentration, maximum study, maximum observation, maximum everything. That is what differentiated him from the others. Norman had incredible endurance. He would routinely work 15 hours a day. Right? He would schedule meetings with his solicitors. They were, befuddled when they got a call and said, come to John Blair at 12 o'clock. This is midnight. That is after Norman Manley had done preparation for his case, right? And then leaves the Supreme Court or wherever and he goes and campaigns and gives speeches. Comes back home to John Blair by 11 o'clock. And then he has a conference at 12. And that would last until 3 o'clock or so in the morning. And Abendana, a solicitor who used to instruct him, a very popular solicitor in St. Mary, Abendana and Mdana, the firm still exists, right? Said on one occasion that after they had finished a conference at 3 o'clock, Manley said that he was going to read his brief for a case that he was doing in Mandeville that day. I met him in 1961, I think. Yes, when he came to England to address the students, right, at the Student Center, and he spoke about his plans for federation. Norman Washington Manley felt that the best way to obtain independence was if there was a federation of the territories, the British territories, right? There was actually a federal parliament at one time, right? Now, because of his commitment to democracy, I must tell you all the same that in 1950, the PNP won the first election in 55 and in 1959, understand? But because of his commitment of democracy, he put it to the people and had a referendum. The people voted against it. And he demonstrated his commitment to democracy by calling a general election. That was, and we still had 2 or 3 years to run before election was constitutionally due. We not only demonstrated his commitment to it, but a sense of principle. As a person, he had an ironclad integrity. And I have to tell you, to demonstrate the integrity of Norman Manley, in 1958 or so, when he was chief minister, one of his ministers, right, was Minister of Communication and Works. And his wife got a contract, had a little truck to transport something for the ministry. And when Norman Manley heard, he called the minister and said, you have to resign. Unimpeachable integrity, principle. After they voted against federation, he continued with characteristic vigor and energy his pursuit of independence, right? Because he was the doyen and the architect and builder of independence. It's like by a cruel twist of fate, as you know, he was not in power when we got independence. When Norman Manley died on the 2nd of September, 1969, On the 3rd of September, the Gleaner wrote this: Norman Manley was in every sense a great man. His greatness was no mere insular magnificence. He had the mind and measure of the great everywhere, whether in things of law, in the arts of life, in public dedication and family devotion. He was a genius of total and unselfish commitment. And Victor Stafford Reed, who was an author, novelist, and later a Manley biographer, wrote, in the larger canvas, he was all this: lawyer, athlete, war hero, statesman. But in the minor canvas, more too: teacher, farmer, expert axeman, lover of the arts, a drum fire of performance marked his ways. But one of the things that I just want to add that characterized Norman Manley was said by Lord Caradon. Lord Caradon was the British ambassador to the United Nations. But he served in Jamaica as Sir Hugh Foote, as governor. And there was a memorial service for Manley in New York at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine on the 27th of October, 1969. And Lord Caradon said in his tribute, Norman Manley was one of the greatest men I ever met. His most outstanding quality was his undisputed honesty and integrity. When it was announced that he was made a national hero and the formation of law school, yes, it was well received, right, with universal approbation, because Norman Manley had captivated the attention, the imagination of the Jamaica, and had inspired men. When he gave his final speech at the PNP conference in 1969, he said, my mission, the mission of my generation, was to achieve self-government, to win self-government, and to win political independence for the black masses of this country, of which I sprung, from which I sprung. And I can say proudly and happily today, mission achieved. The law school was a very significant development. A lot of people have made law a profession, not only for itself, but as a stepping stone to other things. A lot of lawyers are working in banks, working in various institutions and so on. And those qualifications enable them to get employment and to do well. And it could not be named after anybody else but Norman Washington Manley, a leader of men, a statesman, an intellectual giant, a visionary, a patriot, father of the nation.
A famous judge was once asked by a fond father, what advice would you give me to give my son now that he proposes to go in for the bar? And he replied, sir, remind the young man that he must have high animal spirits. That is the first requirement. And the second is the same, and the third is the same. And if in addition the young gentleman will learn a little law, he won't do too badly.
In other words, just a capacity for hard work, unremitting,
and a total will to win. So that you stop at nothing. It gave you maximum concentration, maximum personal observation, maximum study, maximum everything. And the reward was winning.